Welcome to the cityCURRENT Radio Show. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're honored, as always, to bring you inspiring stories of individuals and organizations making a difference, empowering the good, and also giving you a lot of valuable coaching and advice, mentorship, and guidance. And with that theme, we're honored to kick it off with Dew Tinnin. She is the founder and CEO of Skillway. She's a cityCURRENT partner and a big part of our signature breakfast series as well, always giving us great tips. But Dew, how are you doing?
Well, I am so good. I mean, you did that so well. It's like I told you what to say.
It's all scripted in my head. But let's start because your story actually begins at a very young age in terms of becoming passionate about sales and coaching and helping others and achieving results. Give us a little bit of your backstory and what led you to start Skillway.
Okay, so I was the type of kid who knocked on every door, whether it was fudge, Girl Scout cookies, wrapping paper. I always say that if there was a trapper keeper to win, dude, I was going for it. And I'm still that way today. Like, it's a little embarrassing what I'll do for a gift card. Like, I mean, you have a contest, I'm going for it. But when I started my career, my dad had been in sales. I grew up in an environment where I had a lot of salespeople in my family. But I didn't know that, like, when you grew up, you could be a salesperson. And so when I started my career in the mortgage business, and I was a loan officer for a number of years. And then I dipped my toe into sales training, which was a true passion that I found. And then I'd miss being in the field. So I'd go from sales training back to being a producer again. And then as soon as I missed being in the training classroom, I'd go back and forth. So when I found the role of being a sales coach, which is basically selling your coaching and consulting services, but also getting to be in the classroom, I literally found my dream come true. So that's what led to it. And in 2016, I left a former consulting firm that I was with and started Skillway. So now we're up and running as our own gig.
Give us a little bit of the a la carte menu, if you will, because it is coaching, it's one-on-one, it's big groups, you have virtual components as well. So walk us through the offerings for Skillway.
So everything has to do with sales. So everything that we do at Skillway has to do with sales, but we work with primarily relationship-based salespeople. So that means not the one and done sale, like you walk into a retail store, you buy something and you're done. We don't work with those types of organizations. Instead, we only work with organizations who build their relationships, take excellent care of their clients, and then are typically paid like a residual payment every single month, or it's a 3 to 6 month to 2 year life cycle of the business. So that's primarily who we're working with when we say we work with salespeople. However, there's a big, huge chunk of our business, which is entrepreneurs, because, you know, Jeremy, like when somebody starts a business, they started a business because they wanted to make pies, right? They never knew they were going to have to do payroll and create schedules. Oh, and also sell pies, right? So we have a large percentage of our clients that are also entrepreneurs who never knew that they had to be salespeople. So they know that they have to take care of their clients in a really loving way, but do it that way. So the three primary offerings that we do is one-on-one coaching, group coaching, and then strategic coaching. So our one-on-one coaching really is just working one-on-one with salespeople, sales executives, business owners, entrepreneurs. And what we're doing is we're just breaking down what their goals are. How do you want to, achieve what you want to achieve? In our group coaching, it's usually when we're working with an entire company. So we work with their entire sales organization, but we are not a one-size-fits-all sales training approach. And so what we're really doing is we're creating custom content for your team. We learn your acronyms, we learn your business processes, we learn the way that you sell, not the way that we think you should sell. And then what we do is we create a process that can replicate that. And that's how we do our group coaching. And then the third area is strategic coaching. And that's really where somebody wants us to dive in and figure out what is or isn't working in a business. Oftentimes we're looking at their comp plans. We're looking at their strategic growth opportunities, markets that they want to break into. And so we're coming at it from much more of a consultative approach to figure out what is or isn't working in their organization. So those are our three the three areas we work in primarily.
What questions or what sort of research do you like to do on the front end? Because as you mentioned, you want to learn their acronyms.
Mm-hmm.
You want to look at where the gaps are and what the pain
Mm-hmm.
points are. And it's one thing to hear from them, but like you said, you want to figure out not just their words, like, okay, what is the customer side telling you? And what does that experience look like? Because maybe there's some gaps there, but what are the things that you're looking at on your end as you start to form that relationship?
Yeah. So when we're trying to figure out what's going on in the company, we do a ton of shadowing, Jeremy. We actually go on sales calls with their team and see what they're doing. So we will meet with them. We're just part of their team. We're not like Skillway, the consultant. We are part of cityCURRENT. You know, we go on sales calls with cityCURRENT to see what you're doing. And instead of us looking at how are you selling your product or service, right? Because that's what so oftentimes sales managers are looking at is like, you missed section C on the proposal, right? Instead, we're looking at what are the the prospects' buying signs? What are they really needing? Is the salesperson asking the right questions to really figure out what their needs are? And so we're listening to the entire sales approach. We're not listening to how you're selling your services. So this is where we can dive in and really see, oh, the reason that your company is doing so amazing in this area is because this person has the best needs analysis. And the reason that this person is setting the most appointments is because they're doing this. And so we'll take these little tiny pieces that each group is doing, and we create one process that can be replicated across the whole entire company. So we really come at it from an approach of we're just there to become part of the team and research. But because we already know how to sell, we're not necessarily concerned about the product you're selling. We're concerned about your sales process.
Well, I love the idea of embedding yourself into the culture, the organization, the process, to really get a real world scenario of what's playing out. So you know genuinely how to help. And you can take, like you said, some best practices over here with some gaps over here, and you can across the board be able to help. Share a little bit about the value of coaching, because I think when you talk about sales, in many cases, companies basically like hire you in and throw you out into the fire. And some will say, we'll give you a little bit of training. And others say, well, you know, you should have this in college. But the reality is when you talk about sales training, there's a huge gamut, and it's really hard to get effective coaching. So talk about it from that vantage point of why this is so important.
So first of all, I want to address one of the common myths about sales coaching. And that is the only people who need sales coaching are the people who stink at sales. That is so not true. I mean, we have clients that typically make somewhere around $150,000 a year, all the way up to several $1 million a year. So like we have the full income gamut that we're working with. And so when people think sales coaching, they're like, oh, you need to talk to Charlie. He's awful at sales. No, we don't want to talk to Charlie. Who's your top producer? Who are the people who, you know, we say that we take average producers and turn them into top producers, and we take top producers and turn them into rock stars, right? Like we work with all types of sales professionals. And yes, several million a year is definitely some of our client base. And they're in coaching because they have an area of their business that they want to improve. Now, typically it falls in one of three areas, Jeremy. And the first area is getting your head in the game. I can't talk enough about how much sales isn't only a numbers game. It is truly a game of psychology. You have to have your head in the game. So we talk a lot about goal setting, holding yourself accountable, creating a morning routine that works for you, how to deal with negativity and having a more positive attitude. And all of these topics that have to do with your head, because sales is a game of psychology. The second area that we primarily work in is their sales skills or their leadership skills. We call this their expertise. So in the sales skills, this is the entire sales process where we're literally going through where are you getting your lead gen? What's your initial contact? How are you doing a thorough discovery phase? What's the proposal that you're putting together? I mean, all the way to objections and getting referrals, and of course, follow up after that. So that's really the sales process. In sales leadership, this is where we're talking about hiring, firing, recruiting, onboarding, how to shadow your team, how to hold your team accountable, and how to manage your team's numbers. Because so oftentimes managers grow up in sales and then they take their top producer and turn them into a sales manager, right? So they never learned the fundamentals of like, just get after it, because that's what they did, right? And then they have a bunch of salespeople who don't know how to get after it. And so we really teach them on how to help grow their sales team. And then the third area is time management and delegation. I can't tell you how many people are making the amount of money that they want to make, but they don't have any time for their personal life. And they're like, I don't want to even think about recruiting more people, or I don't want to grow my business anymore because I never see my kids. And so we spend a lot of time teaching people how to be more effective with their time and delegation and creating the team that will help them. So that's the fundamentals of, what we do in sales coaching.
Yeah. And I love that as you were diving into the minutia, like you can clearly see, wow, there's a lot to unpack here. There's a lot to learn. And just like any professional athlete, they all have coaches. Yeah. These are professional athletes. They understand the value of coaching. To your point, to anyone who's competitive, you always want to win, like you said in the beginning, but you always want to get better. You always want to improve. And that's, I think, to your point, where the coaching really steps in. Give us, because you on your end, you do a lot of sharing tips, blog postings. You put a lot of good information out there. So I'm going to give you a really broad, band to choose from, but give us a couple of your favorite tips when it comes to just, you as the speaker, giving some recommendations. Give us a couple.
So I'm going to talk about, one of my favorite areas to talk about is the importance of understanding your compensation. Okay, so I'm going to speak to this both from a salesperson aspect and from a sales manager aspect. This is a huge mistake that we see in sales organizations, is that their comp plans just stink. I mean, honestly, they motivate in the wrong ways. A salesperson doesn't even know how to calculate. I mean, they need a degree in mathematics or a spreadsheet to figure out how much they're going to make, right? So one of the things that I love when I can get super deep into a sales organization is to pull apart their comp plan. I am the furthest person from enjoying mathematics. Like, spreadsheets aren't my friend. However, reverse engineering goals and figuring out those numbers, I have been told I take it to a contact sport level. So I love looking at goals and compensation plans. So I'll share with you a story from a sales manager aspect and from a producer aspect. So we have a client who knew, a manager who knew how to hit their goals. But one of the things they struggled with was every single year they kept hitting like a ceiling, right, within their organization. And when we pulled apart his comp plan capped out with their salespeople making top tier before they hit the company goals. And so we redid the comp plan to have it actually, you get paid highest tier when the company hits their goals. And honestly, Jeremy, they've crushed their crush it goal, because yes, we take it to a crush it goal level here at Skillway. They've crushed their crush it goal 2 years in a row. Like, dude, we had no idea that a compensation plan could affect a sales organization so significantly, right? We have another client on the sales side where he knew how to figure out his comp plan, but it was the relationship side of his comp plan that he didn't understand. And that was, he needed to take those relationships to a deeper level. So he's in med sales and he calls on doctors, and he knew the activity he needed to do based on reversing engineer his goals. But because he wasn't deepening the relationships with his doctors, he was getting the door shut on him all the time. So we created a prospecting plan for him with the same level of activity, but changing it so he was actually bringing value every time he went into the clinic or the hospital. We spent all of 2019 deepening relationships with his doctors. And when 2020 hit and COVID hit, all of the med reps in his whole entire organizations were getting their doors slammed in their face because they didn't have those relationships. And he didn't get any doors shut on him because he had already built those relationships. So sometimes you know the activity you're supposed to do, but you're not doing it in the right way. And then sometimes you just look at it and you're like, oh, this doesn't this doesn't make sense this way. So so he was actually the number 5 rep out of over 300 reps at his company in 2020 because he didn't get any doors shut on him because he had all those relationships already. So like there's activity you need to do, but deepen those relationships. Like that's where the magic really happens.
You mentioned the psychology and that side of it and the importance. Give us one tip around mindset, mindfulness, remaining positive. What's one of your favorite tips on that side?
You know, my favorite topic is always going to be on resilience because we get doors, I'm just going to say doors slammed on us in sales. You know, you pick up the phone, they're like, no, I'm happy with who I'm with. And the status quo is the biggest competitor that we have to face. And so if you can just realize that they're a no for now, not a no forever, that is a huge part. And one of the things I learned very early in my sales career is instead of going for yeses, I went for nos. So I knew that I had to get 4 no's in order to get a yes. So like as soon as I got a no, I was like, boom, 1 more down, 3 to go. Boom, 2 more down, 1 to go. And then I'd get a yes and I'd be like, fantastic. Now I need 4 no's, right? So if you can figure out what it is that's going to motivate you from that resilience standpoint, then calling companies that you don't know of or getting a no is no big deal. But if you don't prospect regularly, then you're always going to get like a door slammed in your face, so to speak. And then you're going to sit there and sulk for 15 minutes or 15 hours, right? Because you don't know how to recover from it. But if you can celebrate the no's and celebrate the yeses, obviously, but really turn it into a game of, I can do this. I can do hard things. I mean, 2020 taught us we could do hard things, right? So like getting a no, that's no big deal now. So my favorite tip on that is figure out what you need to do in order to recover quickly from a no so you can just pick up and move on.
This is one of those conversations we could go on for hours. And like I said, you put out a lot of great information. You speak regularly at every one of our signature breakfast series in Nashville. And so you're always putting out good content around networking and sales and coaching and all these different topics. But where can we go to learn more about Skillway? Where can we go to learn more about you and your efforts?
Okay, number 1, skillway.com. That's the best place to go. Skillway, all one word.com. Our handles on all of the social media platforms are Skillway Company, so it's pretty easy there. I'm on LinkedIn. I want to connect with you on LinkedIn. Tell me that you saw this, just Dew Tinnin at LinkedIn, and man, I'd love to connect with you there. Tell me you saw the interview, you heard the radio show, whatever it might be, and connect with me on LinkedIn. Let me know that you saw it and you want to connect there. And that's the best place. That's the best place to find us anywhere.
Will do. Always appreciate it. Thank you very much for being on the show. And thank you for your cityCURRENT partnership as well. Love you. We'll see you back soon.
All right. Take care.